I was abused.
My name is Leila, and 5 years ago I was sold like livestock in a hidden market. Today, I stand before you as a daughter of the King of Kings. This is my story, how Jesus Christ reached into the deepest abyss of human trafficking and drew me into his radiant light. I was born Muslim. I lived as a Muslim. But I was reborn a Christian. Let me take you back to where it truly began. Because the truth is, my story didn't start in that marketplace. It started in a quiet village where the call to prayer drifted through the air 5 times each day, where my mother's gentle hand showed me how to fold prayer rugs, and where I believed with every breath that Allah watched over me. You see, I wasn't just another girl caught in the web of trafficking. I was the daughter who memorized more verses of the Quran than her brothers combined. I was the child who never missed a prayer, who fasted during Ramadan even when hunger twisted my stomach into knots, who wore my hijab with pride because I believed it made me beautiful in his eyes. I was devout. I was faithful. I believed my religion shielded me. Or so I thought. What I'm about to share will challenge everything you assume about faith, protection, the reach of darkness, and the even greater reach of divine light. When I was 15, everything I believed about God, safety, family, and my own identity shattered in ways I never imagined. The very people I trusted most, the faith I clung to, the prayers I whispered in desperation, none of it prepared me for what was coming. And what came wasn't merely tragedy or betrayal. It was a force that stripped away every layer of who I thought I was until only raw questions remained, questions my Islamic faith couldn't answer, and a hunger for truth that led me somewhere I never expected to go. This isn't just a story about human trafficking, though that's part of it. It's not only about religious conversion, though that happened too. This is a story about a God I didn't know existed, one who had been orchestrating my rescue long before I ever spoke his name. It's about how the same God who allowed me to be sold like merchandise had already set in motion my deliverance. How the faith that failed me in my darkest hour was replaced by a faith that moved heaven and earth to find me. I'll tell you things that may unsettle you. I'll describe moments so dark you might want to look away, but I'll also show you light breaking through in ways that will steal your breath. Because the God I serve now doesn't just save, he redeems. He doesn't just rescue, he restores. And he doesn't just forgive, he transforms. So settle in. This journey will challenge your assumptions about religion, suffering, justice, and love. By the time I'm done, you'll understand why I can stand here today and say with absolute certainty, the worst thing that ever happened to me became the pathway to the best thing that ever happened to me. My name is Leila. This is my testimony. And it begins in Yemen, in a home where the Quran guided our days, modesty defined our honor, and we never dreamed evil could wear the mask of opportunity. Picture this, a dusty village 30 kilometers outside Sana'a, where donkeys still carried clay water jugs and ancient stone houses seemed to whisper secrets from generations past. That was my world, the world of Leila Farid al-Hamdi. My father, Karim, wasn't just any Muslim man. He was the muezzin of our village mosque, the voice that summoned the faithful to prayer 5 times a day. His call rose over rooftops at dawn and echoed through twilight, rich and steady, carrying sacred words across mist and shadow. But what you must understand about my father is this: he didn't just call others to worship, he lived it. Every moment of his day revolved around those 5 prayer times: Fajr before sunrise, Dia at midday, As in the afternoon, Maghrib at sunset, and Isha after dark. Our entire household pulsed to this sacred rhythm. My mother, Samaya, was the kind of woman other village women admired. Her hijab was always perfectly arranged, not a single strand of hair exposed. Her prayers were whispered with such devotion I used to imagine Allah leaning close just to hear her. She bore my father 6 children, and I was the youngest, the only daughter among 5 sons: Tariq, Nabil, Rashid, Faisal, and Zaid. They were my protectors, my companions, my heroes. In our culture, being the soul sister meant being cherished, guarded, loved in ways outsiders might find overwhelming. They called me our little pearl. And I truly believed that's what I was. Now, understand this, our faith wasn't casual. It wasn't limited to Friday prayers. Islam was woven into every breath I took, every thought, every dream. I learned to read Arabic before I could speak fluently in my native tongue. The Quran wasn't just a book in our house, it was the book. By age 12, I'd memorized over 50 surahs. I could recite Al-Fatiha in my sleep. Guests would visit just to hear their daughter recite, their faces beaming with pride. I began praying 5 times a day at 7, not because I was forced, but because I longed to please Allah. During Ramadan, I fasted even when my mother said I was too young, convinced that sacrifice brought me closer to the divine. But here's what I never told anyone, what I couldn't admit even to myself. Despite all that devotion, all those prayers, all that memorization, I felt distant from Allah. I performed rituals flawlessly, yet never felt embraced. I followed every rule, yet never felt loved. There was always a sense that Allah watched, judged, weighed my deeds, but never held me. I assumed this was normal. I thought faith meant standing before a stern judge, not resting in a father's arms. I mistook fear for reverence, distance for respect, emptiness for piety. To the outside world, we were the model Muslim family. My father was respected across the region for his knowledge of Islamic jurisprudence. My mother advised young brides on running godly households. My brothers were known for honesty in trade and consistency in worship. Our home always smelled of lamb stew, fresh flatbread, and honey-sweetened tea. Each evening after Maghrib prayer, we gathered as a family. My father reading Quran, my mother serving tea, my brothers sharing stories while I listened in quiet contentment, wrapped in the warmth of belonging. Yet even in that safety, I noticed things I didn't understand. The way my mother's smile would fade when she thought no one saw, how my father's voice carried worry in hushed conversations after prayer, how my eldest brother Tariq would stare out the window with unreadable eyes. Then came the late-night visitors, men who spoke in low tones with my father. From my room, I'd catch fragments. Opportunities, hard times, what must be done. I didn't realize then that those words would reroute my entire life. The conflict in Yemen hadn't reached our village directly, but its shadow crept in like rising floodwater. The textile workshop where my father worked part-time cut hours. Market prices soared, forcing my mother to count coins twice before buying bread. One by one, my brothers spoke of leaving, not forever. They insisted, just to find work in Saudi Arabia, Jordan, anywhere jobs hadn't vanished like desert mist. Tariq left first. Then Nabil. Then Rashid. Each departure felt like a quiet death in our home. My mother's prayers grew longer, more desperate, less confident supplication, more pleading cries that made ice form in my stomach. She prayed for provision, protection, her distant sons, and unnamed solutions. My father, once so strong in his call to prayer, now sounded strained. His recitations lost their certainty, replaced by something that sounded like doubt, as if he were asking questions instead of declaring truth. That's when Uncle Farouk began visiting more often. Uncle Farouk wasn't truly family, just a man we'd called uncle since childhood. He always had money when others didn't, always knew of opportunities when others saw only walls. His smile never reached his eyes, though I didn't recognize that warning then. I was 15, still believing Allah would shield our home. Still trusting my parents would never let harm near their precious daughter. Still assuming my faith was armor enough against the world's darkness. I had no idea evil doesn't wear horns. Sometimes, it wears a friendly face, offers solutions to desperate prayers, and disguises itself as hope. I had no idea that within weeks, everything I believed about safety, family, faith, even God, would be tested in ways that would either destroy me or remake me into someone I never dreamed I could be. It was a Tuesday evening when Uncle Farouk arrived with his proposal. I remember the date. It changed everything. My father had just finished Maghrib prayer. My mother was preparing dinner when we heard his knock. But this time, his urgency was palpable. He sat in our living room, accepted tea, but spoke with unusual gravity. Fragments reached me in the kitchen, a wealthy family in Beirut. Lebanese Christians needing help with children, good wages, respectable work, skills for marriage. My parents exchanged glances I didn't understand. My mother's hands trembled as she poured more tea. My father stroked his beard, his sign of deep thought. Uncle Farouk painted a picture of opportunity, describing how many girls from struggling homes had found stability through such roles. The conversation lasted hours. I was sent to my room, but pressed my ear to the door. They discussed my education, my character, my devotion. He assured them the family respected Muslim beliefs, I'd keep my prayers, my modest dress. He spoke of monthly wages that could feed us for months. That night, I fell asleep unaware my parents had agreed to send me away with a man whose true intentions were darker than the Yemeni night outside. The next morning, chaos. My mother packed my most modest dresses, pressed my hijabs, tucked in my small Quran, the one my grandmother gave me, and my mother's prayer beads, as if these sacred items could guard me. My father sat me down. "You'll travel to Lebanon to serve a good family," he said. "Represent us with honor. Keep your Islamic values, even in a Christian home." He made me promise 5 daily prayers, daily Quran reading, never forget I was a daughter of Islam. I was excited. Travel. Seeing beyond our village. Earning to help my family. I imagined kind employers, well-mannered children, maybe even learning French. My mother cried as she packed. I thought it was just missing me. I didn't grasp the true weight of her tears, the sacrifice she believed necessary for our survival. 3 days later, Uncle Farouk returned with a car and a driver I'd never seen, a thin man with nervous eyes who avoided looking at us. Uncle Farouk was rushed. "We must cross the border before evening," he said. Goodbyes were hurried. My father recited Quranic verses over me, asking Allah's protection. My mother clung to me, whispering prayers, begging me to write. My 2 youngest brothers, Faisal and Zaid, were away at work. If they'd been home, they might have questioned this sudden departure. I climbed into the back seat with my small suitcase, heart fluttering with anticipation and nerves. As we drove away, I watched my family shrink in the rear window until they vanished. The journey took hours. We passed checkpoints where Uncle Farouk showed papers and spoke quietly with soldiers. I dozed, waking to unfamiliar landscapes. The driver chain-smoked and spoke in a dialect I didn't recognize. By evening, we stopped at a house Uncle Farouk called a friend's shelter before reaching Beirut. The house was large but cold. Men there looked at me in ways that unsettled me, though I couldn't name why. That night, on an unfamiliar bed, I prayed with extra fervor, reciting protective verses my mother taught me, believing my faith would shield me. I had no idea this was the last night I'd pray as a free person. I didn't know men in the next room were already negotiating my sale, discussing my price, planning my future as if I were cargo. Morning came with urgency. No breakfast, just haste. "We'll eat at our destination," Uncle Farouk said. But we didn't head toward Beirut. We turned onto roads leading deeper into unknown territory. When I asked, he said plans changed, we'd meet the family elsewhere. The driver grew erratic. Fear stirred in my chest. We arrived at a walled compound with guarded gates. This wasn't a Christian home. This felt like a prison. Uncle Farouk walked me toward a building. Men appeared, examining me like livestock. In that moment, truth crashed over me. Everything I'd been told was a lie. I wasn't going to work for a kind family. I wouldn't send wages home. I wouldn't return with stories of adventure. I was merchandise. Sold. Purchased. Property. Men discussed my age, appearance, value in markets I'd never heard of. Uncle Farouk took money, counted it, and prepared to leave. When I begged him to take me home, he wouldn't meet my eyes. "Be obedient to your new employers," he muttered. As his car disappeared through the gates, I stood alone. No longer Leila, the devout daughter, but a product to be processed and sold. That first night in captivity, I prayed harder than ever, reciting every verse I knew, begging Allah for rescue, promising greater devotion. But heaven stayed silent. No angel came. No miracle unfolded. My prayers vanished into darkness, leaving me lonelier than I'd ever been. Other girls came from different faiths, Christian, Muslim, others, but none of our gods answered. We were all equally abandoned, equally worthless to those who owned us. After a week, they moved me, hidden in a truck with other girls, heading toward unknown fates. Rumors swirled about what awaited those sold. I refused to believe them. I clung to hope. This was a mistake. My parents would find me. Uncle Farouk would return. The marketplace was underground, hidden, clinical. Humans bought and sold like vegetables. I was displayed with dozens of others, tagged with age, origin, features. Buyers examined us with detached calculation, discussing durability, resistance, utility. I spent 3 days there, each hour feeling like a year. I prayed constantly. Allah, blind their eyes. Make me invisible. Strike them down. I vowed to memorize the entire Quran, fast every Monday and Thursday, dedicate my life, if only he'd rescue me. But my prayers fell like stones. Allah felt farther than the stars. The faith that shaped my identity now seemed powerless against this evil. When I was finally bought, it was by a man with eyes void of compassion. He checked my teeth, hands, health, like inspecting a draft animal. He bargained emotionlessly, as if buying furniture. In that moment, Leila ceased to exist. I became an acquisition. My first owner took me to a house where work meant unspeakable violation, forced acts that shattered every belief about dignity, modesty, and the sacredness of the body. I tried to maintain my Islamic practices. I attempted 5 daily prayers, though captors mocked me, sometimes blocked me. I whispered Quranic verses in secret, hoping for protection. But even these felt hollow. The words echoed in an empty void. The God I'd served seemed absent or indifferent. After 8 months, he sold me again. My second owner was crueler, creative in his brutality. He took special pleasure in mocking my faith, forcing pork down my throat, denying ablution, defiling my few remaining religious items. Under him, I stopped praying, not because he stopped me, but because I no longer believed anyone listened. The Allah of my childhood seemed either non-existent or uncaring. Islam, once my anchor, now felt like a cruel illusion. It was during this time I met Maryam. She was older, perhaps 50, working as a maid. Unlike others, she showed quiet kindness. An extra piece of bread, a damp cloth for my wounds, a gentle word when I cried. Maryam carried a dignity no abuse could break. I learned she was a Christian, a follower of Jesus. In my upbringing, Christians were people of the book, respected but misguided, having missed Islam's final revelation. But watching Maryam, I saw something different. She didn't just follow rules. She lived in relationship with her God, speaking to him throughout the day as if he walked beside her. Late at night, when the house was still, she shared stories of Jesus, a God who became human, who knew suffering, betrayal, abandonment. This stunned me. In Islam, Allah was transcendent, above human pain. But Maryam's Jesus had entered suffering. She told of Jesus healing the sick, defending outcast women, offering love to the discarded. Her faith wasn't about perfect performance, it was about being loved despite brokenness. I hungered for these stories. One night, after a brutal day, I sobbed uncontrollably. Maryam came, sat beside me, and asked, "May I pray for you?" When she prayed, it wasn't rote recitation. She spoke to Jesus as if he were present, pleading for my healing, comfort, protection, freedom. Most astonishing, she prayed as if Jesus knew my name and cared deeply about my pain. Listening, something cracked open in my heart, a tiny fissure of hope. Over weeks, I asked Maryam more. How did she keep peace amid horror? She explained Jesus came not as a conquering king, but as a servant who gave his life to rescue the trapped. He died on a cross, taking punishment for evil, including what was done to me. This idea, someone suffering for me, resonated deep within. Maryam's Jesus wasn't distant. He'd entered human pain and overcome evil with love. Islam taught submission to divine will, even if that will included suffering. But Maryam's faith offered hope that God's true will was flourishing, and that suffering was an enemy he fought against. 6 months after meeting her, my second owner sold me again. I was separated from Maryam, but the seed she planted kept growing. My third owner was the cruelest. He specialized in crushing hope, convincing girls they were worthless, permanently stained, undeserving of love. Under him, I hit rock bottom. Yet even there, I remembered Maryam's words. Jesus came for the broken. No abuse can change God's love for you. These thoughts were tiny lights in overwhelming darkness. I couldn't pray to Jesus yet, but I clung to the possibility Maryam was right. The breaking point came 4 months in. After a particularly degrading ordeal, I lay numb, more dead than alive. I realized I had 2 choices: surrender to despair, or reach for Maryam's hope. With nothing left, I whispered my first prayer to Jesus. Jesus, if you're real, if you care about broken people like Maryam said, please help me. I don't know how to believe, but I want to try. Nothing dramatic happened. No angels. No miracles. But a subtle shift began. The weight of despair lifted slightly, like a sealed room finally opening a window. Over days, I prayed more, to Jesus. I told him my pain, shame, fear. Asked if Maryam was right about his love. Gradually, I sensed a presence, not distant judgment, but loving nearness, like a father holding his wounded child. 3 weeks later, police raided the compound. Later, I learned it was the result of months of investigation. But in that moment, officers breaking doors, arresting captors, it felt like a direct answer to prayer. I was taken to a safe house run by Christian aid workers. For the first time in over 2 years, I was safe. Seen as human, not commodity. I spent 3 days crying, not from sorrow, but relief. There, I met Pastor David, a man who became like the father I'd lost. Gentle, patient, never pushing, always present. He helped me understand. My encounter with Jesus wasn't wishful thinking. It was real. He taught me the gospel. Jesus came to rescue the trapped, heal the broken, free the captive. My rescue wasn't coincidence. It was divine response to desperate prayer. Miriam's Jesus had proven himself real. As I learned more, I saw how different Christianity was from Islam. Islam, earn Allah's favor through deeds. Christianity, receive God's love as a free gift. Grace, undeserved favor, was revolutionary to someone who'd spent life trying to be good enough. Pastor David explained, Jesus did everything needed to reconcile me to God. My role was simply to receive. This transformed everything. No longer a distant judge, I discovered a loving father who moved heaven and earth to rescue his daughter. 3 months after rescue, I chose baptism. Going underwater, death of Leila, the Muslim slave. Coming up, birth of Leila, beloved daughter of Christ. In that water, shame, guilt, and brokenness washed away, replaced by new life in Jesus. I rose knowing I was no longer defined by what was done to me, but by what Christ did for me. Healing wasn't just spiritual. The safe house provided counseling, education, community with other survivors. But most importantly, I learned my value didn't depend on purity, performance, or past. I was precious because God created me and chose to love me. As I healed, I felt called to share my story. I began speaking at churches and conferences, reaching women trapped in abuse or trafficking. I joined anti-trafficking efforts, using my experience to help rescue others. Turning pain into purpose brought deep healing. I met other survivors, some trafficked for years, others briefly but scarred deeply. What united us wasn't trauma, but shared experience of divine rescue. One powerful moment, reconnecting with Miriam. She'd been freed shortly after I left, and spent years praying for me, working with anti-trafficking groups. When we met again, both free, both serving Jesus, we wept for joy. She told me she never stopped believing God would save me. That reunion confirmed God's sovereignty. He placed Miriam in my life at the exact moment I needed to hear of Jesus. Even in horror, he was working for my good. But the hardest part? Learning to forgive. Pastor David taught, forgiveness is non-negotiable for Christians. Forgive the men who bought and sold me, who treated me as less than human. Seemed impossible. But he clarified, forgiveness isn't excusing evil, it's releasing my right to revenge, trusting God with justice. I realized my bitterness kept me emotionally enslaved, long after physical freedom. Forgiveness was my final step to true liberation. One by one, I forgave. Uncle Farouk, the buyers, each owner, even my parents, who made an impossible choice in desperation. This didn't happen overnight. And it didn't stop me from pursuing justice. I cooperated with law enforcement, but now from love for the oppressed, not hatred for oppressors. Then, a woman from my Yemeni village contacted me. She'd heard rumors and wondered if I was the Leila who vanished years ago. Through her, I learned my family never stopped searching. They'd reported me missing, traveled to Lebanon, aged with grief. My father's voice had weakened from years of desperate prayer. Contacting them was agonizing. I longed to see them, but knew my conversion would devastate them. After months of prayer, I wrote, I'm alive. I'm safe. I've become a Christian, because this faith rescued and healed me. Their response was painful. My father saw it as betrayal. My mother torn between joy and grief. My brothers angry, confused. But they agreed to meet. The reunion was bittersweet, joy mixed with tension over faith. They begged me to return to Islam. I shared how Jesus found me when Allah was silent, how he gave me life when I was spiritually dead. They couldn't understand abandoning our ancestral faith. They took it as personal rejection. It broke my heart, but I couldn't deny Jesus' work in my life. Eventually, we found an easy peace. They couldn't accept my faith, but saw the healing it brought. Today, we stay in touch, though religion remains a rift. I pray daily they'll meet the Jesus who saved me, not as loss, but gain. 5 years since rescue, and I can say with certainty, the worst thing that happened to me paved the way for the best. Trafficking was evil, horrific, unjust. But it led me to Jesus, to true love, eternal purpose. I don't believe God caused my suffering. Evil grieves him. But I do believe he redeemed it, working all things for my good and his glory. Now, I wake each morning knowing the Creator of the universe loves me unconditionally. I pray not from duty, but from relationship with a God who knows me fully and loves me completely. I serve him not from fear, but gratitude. My life now bears no resemblance to what it might have been. I'd likely have married a village man, raised Muslim children, died never knowing Jesus. Trafficking stole much, but led me to something infinitely more valuable. I'm not grateful for the trafficking, I fight to stop it. But I'm grateful for how God used even that evil for good. This God, this Jesus, is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He still rescues the lost, heals the broken, gives hope to the hopeless. Whatever darkness you face, he brings light. If you feel your life is over, too damaged for God to love, know this, that's a lie. The same Jesus who reached into a trafficking ring for a broken Muslim girl reaches for you now. If you doubt God cares or can change your situation, I've been there, but I testify, God is real. He is good. He rescues all who call on him. Your story may differ, but the same Savior who saved me wants to save you. If you've never given your life to Jesus, take that step today. You don't need to clean up first. He takes you as you are, and transforms you. If you're a Christian struggling with doubt, remember, our God specializes in impossible situations. He rescued me from trafficking. He can handle whatever you face. My name is Leila. I was sold as a sex slave, but saved by Jesus Christ. My story proves God brings beauty from ashes, purpose from pain, hope from despair. And if he did it for me, he can do it for you. So please, subscribe, like, comment with your location and how this impacted you, and share with someone who needs hope. Together, let's spread this testimony of God's faithfulness, bringing freedom to the captive and light to the darkest places. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. Thank you for joining God's redemptive work. May he richly bless you as you walk with him. This is my testimony. This is my song. This is my life. And it's all because of Jesus.